Rain came softly that morning, thin, gray mist that soaked through Nina's worn jacket as she waited by the curb. The world felt heavy, the sky low, the city indifferent. Her son, Jamie, tugged at her hand. "Mommy, are we late?" "No, sweetheart," Nina said, forcing a smile. "Just waiting for our ride." She checked her phone for the 100th time. Her Uber driver had cancelled again. Of course, her first job interview in over a year, and the universe was already testing her. Her reflection in a nearby shop window made her sigh. The rain had darkened her curls, the circles under her eyes looked deeper than usual, and her thrift store blouse had started to cling to her skin. Perfect, she thought, exactly the image of success I was going for. Then a black sedan slowed beside her. The passenger window rolled down, and a man's voice said, "Need a ride?" He wasn't who she was expecting. No glowing Uber logo, no uniform. Just a man in his mid-30s, dark hair, steady eyes, and the calm presence of someone who never rushed. Are you my driver?" she asked hesitantly. He smiled faintly. "That depends. Are you Nina headed downtown?" She nodded, relieved. "Yes, that's me. Then I guess I am." She opened the door, ushered Jamie inside, and sank into the seat with a sigh. "You're a lifesaver. Happy to help," he said, pulling into traffic. For a while, they rode in silence, the hum of the engine and the patter of rain filling the space. Nina's nerves buzzed. She'd been out of work since the factory closed last year. Between bills, daycare, and losing her husband to a sudden illness, she'd been barely holding things together. This interview, this chance, was everything. She didn't realize she'd been whispering until the driver said softly, "Big day." She glanced at him. "You could say that. First job interview in forever. I'm trying not to mess it up." He smiled kindly. "You'll do fine. You don't even know me," she said with a little laugh. "I don't have to. You've got that look. Someone who's already been through the hard part." That made her pause. "And what part's that?" "Surviving," he said simply. The words hit her harder than she expected. She turned to the window, blinking back sudden emotion. "Sorry," he said quickly. "Didn't mean to overstep." "No," she said quietly. "It's okay. You're just not wrong." Jamie's small voice piped up from the back seat. "Mommy's the bravest." Nina smiled at him in the mirror. "Brave and tired," she murmured. The man chuckled softly. "That's the best kind." Something in his tone, gentle, genuine, soothed her. When they arrived downtown, the car slowed in front of a sleek office tower. The kind of place where everyone looked like they had everything together. "This is it," she said, her stomach twisting. "Good luck," he told her, turning slightly in his seat. She hesitated. "How much do I owe you?" He shook his head. "Don't worry about it." She frowned. "I can't just." "You can," he said. "Call it an investment in your future." She blinked at him, surprised. "That's oddly specific for an Uber driver." He smiled a little. "Let's just say I believe in second chances." Something about him, his calm, steady presence, made her believe him. "Thank you," she said softly. "Really? Go get that job," he said. She stepped into the drizzle, clutching her purse, and when she turned back, the car was already gone. Inside, Nina tried to push her strange ride from her mind. The office was modern, glass and chrome and soft lights. She checked in, heart hammering. When they finally called her name, she followed the HR manager into a boardroom. "Mr. Brooks will be joining us shortly," the manager said. "He likes to personally meet all potential hires." Nina nodded, nerves fluttering in her chest. The door opened, and her breath caught. The Uber driver walked in, carrying a folder. "Good morning," he said easily. "Nina, isn't it?" She blinked. You're. He smiled, extending a hand. "Daniel Brooks, CEO." Her jaw dropped. I thought. You drove me here." "In a sense, I did," he said with a glint of humor. The HR manager looked confused. "You two know each other?" "Briefly," Daniel said, "but let's focus on her qualifications, shall we?" As the interview went on, Nina tried to focus on the questions, but her mind was spinning. Why hadn't he said anything? Why had he pretended to be her driver? When it ended, Daniel walked her to the elevator himself. "You did great," he said. "I was a mess, she muttered. You were honest, he replied. That's rare. She gave him a searching look. Why didn't you tell me who you were? He smiled. Because sometimes, it's easier to see who people really are when they think you're nobody. When Nina got the job offer, she cried hard. On her first day, she walked into Brooks Industries with trembling hands. Daniel greeted her in the lobby, smiling. Welcome aboard, Ms. Carter, he said warmly. Are you sure you didn't just feel bad for me? She joked nervously. He chuckled. You're here because you earned it, Nina. Don't forget that. As weeks passed, Nina settled into her role in the HR department. She was efficient, patient, and had a natural empathy that everyone loved. Daniel, though her boss, treated her with quiet respect, never crossing lines, but always making sure she had what she needed. She still couldn't quite figure him out. He was kind, but not soft. Smart, but humble, and every once in a while, she'd catch him watching her with that same thoughtful expression he'd worn in the car. The company's annual gala arrived before she knew it. Nina almost didn't go. She couldn't afford a dress, and she hated crowds. But her coworkers pooled together to help her rent one, and when she arrived, even she barely recognized herself. Daniel was standing near the stage, talking with board members, when he saw her. His words faltered mid-sentence. She smiled shyly, tucking a curl behind her ear. Ms. Carter, he said when she approached. You clean up well. You're just saying that because I'm not dripping rainwater on your car seats, she teased. He laughed softly, maybe a little. They danced once, slow, tentative, and lighthearted. But to Nina, it felt like the first time in years that she wasn't carrying the world on her shoulders. When the song ended, he leaned close and murmured, You deserve every good thing that's coming, Nina. Nina had moved up quickly in the company. Her ideas improved employee morale. Her compassion brought new programs for struggling workers, and her leadership caught everyone's attention, including Daniel's. One afternoon, as she packed up for the day, Daniel appeared at her door. Big news, he said, smiling. The board approved your proposal for the single-parent support initiative. Her eyes widened. Are you serious? Daniel, that's incredible. You made it happen, he said simply. You turned your own story into something that'll help dozens of people. She smiled, emotion catching in her throat. I couldn't have done it without you believing in me. He met her gaze quietly. You'd be surprised what believing in yourself can do. They stood there for a long moment, the silence filled with everything they hadn't said. Finally, she spoke softly. You changed my life that day. When you stopped and gave me that ride. He shook his head. You changed your own life, Nina. I just happened to be there when you decided to start again. A year later, Nina and Daniel stood side by side in front of the company's new Second Chances Foundation, an initiative dedicated to helping single parents re-enter the workforce. Reporters snapped photos as Daniel spoke about compassion and opportunity, but his eyes kept finding Nina's. When the crowd dispersed, he turned to her. You know, I still think about that first day. She laughed softly. When I thought you were my Uber driver. Exactly, he said. You looked at me and saw an ordinary man, not a CEO. I think that's why I stopped. You stopped because you're a good man, she said simply. He smiled. Maybe. Or maybe I just knew I'd found something I wasn't supposed to miss. She blushed, but didn't look away. And what's that? He took a step closer. You. The city lights shimmered on the wet pavement around them, the same rain-softened glow that had started it all. Jamie came running up just then, waving a toy car. Mommy, Mr. Brooks, look. Daniel crouched down beside him, grinning. Nice ride, Jamie. Looks fast. Jamie nodded proudly. It's a race car. Mommy says I can be anything if I work hard. Daniel smiled at Nina. She's right, you know. Nina's heart swelled. For years, she'd thought her story was over. But standing there, surrounded by light and laughter, she realized something beautiful. Her life wasn't ending. It was just beginning, and it had all started with the wrong car, a kind stranger, and a second chance.